President Trump went to dinner last night, and after the meeting, Serena, I'm wondering if they can agree at least on what was actually on the menu.
That is the question, right? It seems like a bizarre turn of events following this dinner that was initially characterized as good and cordial. And then, you had the minority leaders come out and say that they had a deal on this Dreamer bill and it did not include a wall. And then the press secretary, Sarah Sanders, disagreeing with that characterization, saying excluding the wall was certainly not agreed to. But you guys, this morning the president's out tweeting, and it gets even more bizarre because in his tweets he says no deal was made, but then goes on to seemingly separate border security from the border wall. In a second tweet, he says the wall is already under construction and will continue to be built, and that a deal, well, not made on DACA, will include massive border security, which is what the Democrats were saying last night.
So the last bit of information coming from Donald Trump's Twitter feed is that he's agreeing with the minority leaders?
Well, he's saying no deal was made and saying massive border security would have to be agreed to in exchange for consent, which is what the Democratic leaders said last night, that they talked about border security that did not include a wall. And the president's second tweet says the wall, which is already under construction, will continue to be built. And then he goes on in two more tweets to defend Dreamers, to say, does anybody really want to throw out, quote, good, educated, and accomplished young people who have jobs, some serving in the military, really? And so it's that disconnect between whether or not the wall was part of the conversation for Dreamer legislation, and if that was part of the quote-unquote deal made at the White House last night.
And just so that we're all on the same page, did I miss a memo? The wall is not under construction. Is that correct?
Well, the wall has had 4 bids that have started to build prototypes around the Southern California border. So the prototypes have started, but not the wall construction. These prototypes will allow the Border Patrol to look at what works, what doesn't, and what they need moving forward.
Okay, while the rest of us are trying to figure out exactly what happened last night, it seems like the conservative media and some conservative lawmakers are not happy with what's coming out of this meeting.
Yeah, a lot of Trump's base are not happy with what is coming out of this meeting. In fact, on Breitbart, the headline is Amnesty Dawn, a nickname towards the president for this supposed deal on border security and the wall and DACA. And, that's the question is if he's turning from his base. You had Steve King also out on Twitter tweeting about this issue, not happy at all about the supposed deal that was made and if that did not include the border wall. And so that'll be interesting to see how the White House handles this over, the next few hours, because is the president kind of pivoting away from that base, that wall that they say must be part of any border security package?
He's headed down to Florida today, is he not?
Yeah, that's right. He'll be leaving in just a few hours, and he'll be going to Fort Myers, where he will meet with some of the rescue officials. He'll be meeting with the Coast Guard, and then he'll also head to Naples and meet with individuals impacted by Hurricane Irma.
And then quickly, while we still have you, Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, is under a little bit of hot water, wanting this government plane for his honeymoon. How much of that is getting traction in Washington, and how much is that going to stop this tax cut conversation?
Well, I don't think that's actually been picked up as much given this conversation over DACA and Dreamers and the border wall. That's kind of taken up all the oxygen over the last few hours. But it'll be interesting to see how the White House also responds to this. We haven't gotten a comment from the White House on this yet, and whether or not he asked for that his European honeymoon to use the official the official government jet for. But the Treasury came out with an interesting statement, not necessarily denying that they made the request. In fact, saying that he requested it because he needed to be able to have secure communications. And Democrats on the Hill have said that, this is just common sense. You don't ask to use a government jet that costs a huge amount of money per hour, especially for secure communication, because there's other ways to do that.
Yeah. Boy, interesting. Whirlwind 12 hours. Serena Marshall, ABC News White House correspondent. Thanks for checking in, Serena.